Shannon Martin, tonight a last-minute change of venue causes confusion, frustration and anger among some Toronto festival goers.
You see the faces, give us a refund.
It's just a waste of money, and it's just like false advertisement.
Thousands arriving for Cultureland Festival in Markham are turned away and told the show has moved to Ajax. We're with fans trying to sort out the mess. Plus, back in session, Ontario MPPs are headed to Queen's Park tomorrow with the healthcare staffing crisis expected to dominate the agenda. And
he came to our homes first. This is our homes, this is our livelihoods.
tenants of a Toronto rental say they're facing renoviction. Tonight they took their fight directly to their new landlord. Hello, thanks for joining us. A two-day music festival in Markham is taking some heat, and not because of the temperature. There was a change of venue, plus artist cancellations just minutes before the show was supposed to start. Meg Roberts was there with music fans who say they feel scammed.
We just pay to stand outside.
This VIP Cultureland Festival wristband cost Beheshta Murad $370. She thought the weekend pass would give her access to day and night performances from some of her favorite artists. But instead, she says she feels like she got scammed.
It's just a waste of money, and it's just like false advertisement.
The festival was supposed to start at noon today at the Markham Fairgrounds, but was pushed back to 4 p.m. About a half hour before, a notice went out on the festival's Instagram page saying the venue had changed to Ajax Down Racetrack, and the concert wouldn't start until 6 p.m.
No emails, nothing, just Instagram. I just checked on for the sake of checking on the way, and it just popped up saying change of venue and time. That's all. If I didn't check, I probably would have already been there waiting.
Some people did just that.
Hey there, how are you? I'm doing well. Probably a little bit better than you guys. The show has been canceled here for today.
This group waiting outside Markham Fairgrounds before getting the update on the last-minute venue change, feeling fortunate to have a vehicle for transportation and to not have booked a hotel in Markham.
It's not making a good impression, right? Like if they come up next year, I would definitely I'll consider even buying a ticket. Even if they're great artists, like this was every day there was kind of an issue.
Festival goers say yesterday was much of the same thing. Performances were supposed to start at noon, but the first act wasn't on stage until after 8 p.m. On top of hours of delays, 4 artists were scratched from the lineup a half hour before the show began tonight.
They promised us all these set of people are going to come, and they're telling us on short notice that they're not coming.
I want to say if we can get the refund, guys.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
You see the faces, give us a refund, I swear to God.
CBC News has asked for an interview here on scene, but we're told organizers would not be doing an interview. It's unclear as to whether any type of refund will be issued for the hour's worth of delays. Meg Roberts, CBC News, Ajax.
MPPs return to Queen's Park tomorrow for the first time since Doug Ford was re-elected Premier. The Ontario Legislature will be back in session. It comes as the province faces increasing pressure when it comes to healthcare staffing and inflation. The Progressive Conservatives, who cruised to a majority in June, are set to outline their priorities. There's lots to unpack here, so let's bring in Robert Benzie. He's the Queen's Park Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. Thanks so much for being here with us tonight.
My pleasure, Shannon.
So, Robert, yes, the doors open at Queen's Park tomorrow. The first order of business is electing a speaker, and I think there's 2 Tories up for the job. Is that right?
Yeah, it's Nina Tangri, who is a former minister who told Mr. Ford in June that she didn't want to be in cabinet anymore, so she wanted to run for speaker, and she's up against the incumbent Ted Arnott, who was the speaker since 2018. If Ms. Tangri wins, Shannon, she'll make history. She'll be the first woman to be the Speaker of the Legislature of Ontario. It's the last glass ceiling at Queen's Park. A woman has been Premier, women have been treasurers and deputy ministers and ministers of the Crown, but no one has ever been Speaker.
Okay.
So that'll be the big story tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be watching for that one. Then I know Tuesday it's the throne speech and the budget will be retabled. We first heard about that back in the spring before the election. I'm just curious, given everything that's been going on since then, the nursing shortages, the strain of just everything, it feels like costing more. Do you think we could see tweaks or changes to the budget?
Yeah, Shannon, we know there'll be some changes to the budget because Peter Bethlenfalvy said that there would be, but they're minor tweaks. One is an increase to ODSP support payments. They're going to be increased by 5%, so that's going to cost $425 million. But in a budget that's almost $200 billion, that's not a whole big change. We'll be watching to see if there's more money for healthcare, given the pressures that we've seen in the sort of 2 months since the election. We've seen, 13 or so ERs across the province having to close for certain periods of time because of a staffing shortage, and that's understandable after a 2.5-year pandemic that has really had frontline healthcare workers working very, very hard. And there's a high rate of burnout, and there's a lot of pressure on the government to in the next round of negotiations with nurses and other workers to pony up and pay up. Bill 124, which was the bill that capped their salaries at a 1% increase dating back to 2019, that expires in the next round of negotiations. And I don't think there are a lot of labor groups that are going to be unhappy to see the back of Bill 124. It's been very unpopular among workers.
Yes, for sure. And we have been hearing those calls increasingly over the summer. On Wednesday, it's question period resuming. And I'm thinking about, some of the other parties now and election night. Andrea Horwath of the NDP resigning and Stephen Del Duca of the Liberals both resigning. So we have interim leaders now for those parties. I'm just curious, how does that affect the parties and the legislature? And, I guess, does it give the Conservatives more dominance?
I think it does, in the sense that they don't have to face off against permanent leaders. Peter Tabuns, the NDP leader, is interim until March. They'll pick a new leader then. John Fraser is the interim Liberal leader, and he'll be in place for an undetermined period of time because that party hasn't scheduled its next leadership contest yet. So I think if you're Premier Doug Ford's Conservatives, you're not facing off against the people you're going to be facing off against in the 2026 election. So in a weird way, there's a limbo period for them. But events are going to cause the Conservatives more problems than any of their political opponents. Things like, if there is another wave of COVID in the fall, if there is, continues to be staffing shortages at hospitals, if there are other unforeseen issues that we haven't thought about yet that come, kids going back to school, teachers' contracts are being negotiated. There's a lot on their platter. So politically, they may have an easier time with two interim leaders, but they've got a lot of challenges ahead of them. The honeymoon, as Peter Tabuns was saying to us on Friday, may already be over.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you're going to be watching all of it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. That's Robert Benzie. He's the Queen's Park Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. Well, from the political arena to the world of sports, the National Bank Open in Toronto is welcoming the world's biggest tennis stars this week, but at least one Canadian's hopes to play in the tournament ended early today. That's Mississauga's Marina Stankuzic. She lost to Teresa Martinkova of the Czech Republic in the second round of qualifying. The 17-year-old just unable to secure one of 8 qualifying spots after a successful first day of play on Saturday. 5 Canadian women will take the court, including 13th seed Leylah Fernandez, and Mississauga's Bianca Andreescu is back. You may remember it was this tournament in 2019 when the then 19-year-old became the first Canadian to win in 50 years after taking on Serena Williams. Lots to look forward this week there. Well, a hot day to be playing tennis or doing just about anything, really. A heat warning remains in effect as the humidex reached the low 40s in Toronto. People taking advantage of the hot weather.
We're beating the heat, the pools, a little bit of indoor air conditioning.
So I guess make the summer worth it.
We're going to go swimming, and then we are hoping to have lunch somewhere down here.
The City of Toronto once again extending the hours of 7 city pools until 11:45 tonight. You better hurry if you want to make it. Giving people an opportunity to cool down. Summer-like conditions expected likely to linger into the fall season. And it's not just Ontario dealing with heat events. New Brunswick, Quebec, Nova Scotia, and PEI all dealing with heat warnings. Residents are being advised to watch for signs of heat illness such as swelling, cramps, rash, fainting, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. Well, let's bring In Sophia now, I know we're both fans of the heat, but yes, it can be a really challenging time for a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of Canadians were needing to hydrate throughout today and tomorrow as well for many. At one point, at the peak of the heat today, Shannon, 20 million Canadians were under those heat warnings. They're starting to drop now in places like southern Quebec and in the Maritimes, but that's half the country's population. So incredible heat as we've been tracking, and it's not going anywhere in southern Ontario, still feeling close to 30 into your overnight period. And for the second day in a row, Toronto's forecast temperatures and humidity will blow places like Bahamas and Puerto Rico out of the water. We are still warmer with both temperatures and humidity. In fact, some of the most concentrated water vapor and humidity in North America is right on top of us. But look at this difference come Monday. Just 22 with the feels like with that humidex for places like Ottawa, and still 40 across the board in the south. You know, there's got to be some pretty potent storms rolling through to create that kind of temperature divide, and it's what we could see throughout the entire day Monday and what we're already seeing right now. So we've had a few storms come through, really kind of light and sporadic around the GTA, but a lot of really heavy rain still ongoing in eastern Ontario and in the nation's capital region. Actually, some communities might have already seen 50 to 75 millimeters of rainfall. You'll get that and then some again throughout the day tomorrow, and you could pick up about 30 millimeters of rain around the GTA if you do get a storm come through, because again, it is so concentrated and sticky out there. The boundary will be intense. You'll drive about 15 kilometers and it'll have a difference of about 15 degrees. I'll tell you more in the long range about some of the potent storms you could see along the Lake Erie shorelines, and we'll tell you when it all ends. Shannon.
Okay, thanks, Sophia. We'll see you shortly.
You're welcome.
In other news tonight, a pedestrian is critically injured after being hit by a vehicle in Scarborough. It happened just after midnight in the area of Kingston and Mance Roads, east of Morningside. Police say the victim was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries. The driver remained on scene. Just 4 hours later, another pedestrian was struck in Scarborough, this time on Kennedy, south of Eglinton East. Officers were called to the scene just after 4 a.m. after a motorcyclist hit a man. Paramedics took both the driver, who's also a man, and pedestrian to hospital with critical injuries. Anyone with information concerning either incident is asked to contact police. Tenants of a Toronto rental building are rallying together, taking on their new landlord. This after temporary eviction notices were issued to a handful of residents. As Clara Pasica shows us today, they tried a new tactic in hopes of keeping their community together.
Tenants of 50 and 70 Lawrence Avenue West demonstrated outside the home of Kyle Poulos today, the CEO of the company that served some of them eviction notices. They're asking him to withdraw those notices and meet to discuss other solutions.
We'll do whatever it takes, honestly, and the reason we decided to go to his home today is because he came to our homes first. This is our homes, this is our livelihoods.
Poulos Investments bought the building about 6 months ago for nearly $34 million. In a corporate memo, the company said it plans to rent to a new demographic. Wording the company told Radio-Canada in an email was a mistake. The company apologized to tenants for the error, but many aren't buying it.
I don't believe it. And I don't think any of the tenants here as well don't believe it.
Asusana Rano has lived in the building for 13 years. The first floor tenant was asked to leave by August 1st, but she stayed put.
In Toronto, it's expensive, the rent. I don't have too much money. I am working class. I don't have a plan.
Many tenants say if renovations are necessary, they want to stay in their suites while it happens, something the company told CBC Toronto is not possible for safety reasons. Karima Syed is a real estate lawyer.
There are no rent controls once a unit is empty. That gives an incentive to landlords to try and have this turnover and to increase their profits that way.
The company says they don't practice rent evictions and tenants can return when upgrades are complete and pay the same rent. But rent evictions TO's Philip Zigman says that depends on your definition.
I would say a rent eviction is any time a landlord attempts to evict someone under the guise of doing renovations. Sometimes it's with an N13, sometimes it's informal, sometimes they're actually doing renovations, sometimes they never do. But for me, all of these would be considered rent evictions.
So far, the company shows no signs of budging on asking at least the first floor to leave, but say they don't have plans to temporarily evict everyone else. Everyone here says they're not going down without a fight.
I'm planning on staying. I'm going to fight till the end for this. It's crazy. Like, I don't want to move. I want to stay right where I am. The prices for rent out there right now are ludicrous.
Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
A heads up for Toronto commuters. If you travel through Carlton and Church Streets to get to work, you may want to rethink your route. Starting tomorrow, the intersection will be closed while crews repair the streetcar track there. It's unclear how long the closure is expected to last. The Toronto Preservation Board meets tomorrow. On the agenda, possibly making an old post office along Queen West a heritage site. Davenport MPP Merritt Stiles hopes to make it a community hub instead.
I would like to see, and what the community has said they'd like to see further to that, is actually maintaining that building in public hands. Let's at least make sure that we're finding ways to use that space to address some of the needs in our community.
Canada Post sold the 119-year-old post office to a private buyer last year. Advocates say making it a heritage site is one of the last tools the city has to save the facilities. They also hope to keep putting pressure on Ottawa to rethink how it manages its real estate. Well, stay with us. More stories from across the province. Plus, Sophia is back with your full forecast. Welcome back. Disappointment and disbelief in Montreal tonight. The Pride Parade was called off this morning just hours before it was scheduled to kick off. People had already been gathering in the streets.
It's really unfortunate that us as a community really didn't know the full picture. I would really hope that Fierté Montréal is more communicative in the future.
It feels like something is not told to us right now about everything, every reason that why the parade could not take place.
Lots of question. Pride Montreal's executive director says they were short 80 volunteers, not enough people to keep the parade route safe. A last-minute call after a week of scrambling to keep events afloat. Tens of thousands of people were expected today. The mayor says if the city had known, they could have helped. Organizers say they will try to reschedule the parade in the coming days and weeks. You saw it here first last night. A jury in BC convicted a Dutch man of the sextortion of Amanda Todd. Still, questions remain about how safe kids are online. 15-year-old Todd took her own life a decade ago after being tormented online. Karen Pauls shows us where the fight to protect kids online goes now.
Nearly 10 years ago, this video went viral, thrusting the issues of cyberbullying and sextortion into a global spotlight. Saturday, Aiden Coben, a Dutch foreign national, was convicted of extortion, possession of child pornography, child luring, and criminal harassment.
Very happy for the guilty verdict, happy for Amanda's mom, Carol, for persevering all these years.
Derek Lintz shares a tragic similarity with Carol Todd. His 17-year-old son, Daniel, took his life in February. The rural Manitoba teen was blackmailed after sending a compromising photo to someone he thought was a young woman on Snapchat.
Our hope is with this conviction that it gives victims courage to come forward and to see that something can be done to help them. These people can be found and charged and convicted.
The Lintz hope Coben's extradition to Canada becomes the norm in cases like these.
We also hope that governments continue to seek ways of extraditing these people from safe haven countries where they're able to hunt children basically with no repercussions.
Action is needed, and action is needed soon.
This lawyer says thousands of Canadian children are being victimized online every year, and they need legislative protection.
The offenders can be anywhere, including in Canada. The victims can be anywhere, including in Canada. And the reality is that all governments, and not just the Canadian government, need to take this seriously because children are depending on us to get this right.
Ottawa has been working on long-promised legislation meant to address online harm, but an expert committee failed to agree last month on how to proceed.
As for the Amanda Todd case, a date for the sentencing hearing will be set on Thursday. Aiden Coben has 30 days to decide if he'll appeal. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meantime, wildfire continues to rage in Newfoundland and Labrador. The Premier today updating the situation.
It's the largest fire since 1961, 10,000 hectares. That's the equivalent of 100 square kilometers. It's a big fire. And the two fires are separate now at 50-50 each, but they look like they're merging, unfortunately.
Officials concerned as much about the smoke as the flames. They say shifting winds are creating hazards for residents. A state of emergency is declared in several regions. In addition, outdoor fires have been banned across the province. We're heading into a brief break now. Sophia is back with us next. Finally tonight, it was a big weekend for a small-town soccer player from the Northwest Territories. 17-year-old Shamar Bennett is from Norman Wells, which is home to just 700 people. He lobbied his community to help raise money so he could attend practice in Yellowknife in the hopes of getting called up to play at this year's Canada Summer Games. He got the call, but his family couldn't make the trip until event organizers stepped in to help.
Tell him yourself. Turn around.
Oh my goodness, what a moment. Bennett was the only male soccer player outside Yellowknife chosen to represent Team NT at this year's games. Family, friends, and community members helped fundraise to cover his training and travel expenses. Bennett's mom and stepfather were sponsored by Canadian Tire to make their own surprise trip there. The Canada Summer Games started yesterday and will run until August 21st.
Oh, I got goosebumps there. What a testament to talent.
So sweet, yes. And you know, I was thinking, who needs a trip to the Bahamas when we have the humidity in southern Ontario, right?
Yep. And what's that old adage? It's not about the heat, it's about the humidity, right?
Yeah.
And we've got it in spades. Shannon, not only from the Gulf, but also monsoonal moisture from monsoonal rains in Arizona. In case you were wondering, you got some coffee table fodder for tomorrow, and we're going to be getting monsoonal rains almost in the nation's capital region. We are watching the potential risk of flooding throughout your day Monday. Also scattered storms, especially some severe ones that could come up late day in parts of southwestern Ontario. What about for those of you in the nation's capital region? It'll feel a lot cooler when all those rains come in. For those of you for your Monday morning commute and even a second round into Monday evening, that humidity finally drops though by Tuesday. So a really pleasant week ahead for the rest of it.
Monsoonal rains. I've never heard of that. There you go.
We might get to experience it tomorrow.
She's always teaching us things. Thanks, Sophia. That's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be with you again next weekend. We hope you have a great week ahead. We'll see you soon.